Hello everybody, welcome back to Beware the Terrible. Today we have a new deck for you called the Garbage Gloves, featuring our Garbodor from Vivid Voltage, with the Trash Cyclone attack allowing you to do 30x damage for each Pokemon tool card in your discard pile. After that though, you have to shuffle them back into your deck. So that is the bad thing about this attack, is that you have to discard all over again your Pokemon tool cards to be able to do enough damage for a V knockout or a VMAX knockout. Even VMAX, you actually need to discard up to 11 tool cards in a single turn, which is really difficult, you know, without your Galarian Articuno or your Duskull or your Galarian Meowth. So we are not playing those cards in this deck. Instead of those cards, we are playing our gloves. That's why it's called the Garbage Gloves. We have our Crushing Glove, Fireproof Gloves, and we have our Gardening Gloves and Justice Gloves as well. So we are not playing Justified Gloves. We are not playing the new gloves from Evolving Skies just because I want to keep the copies, I want to make the copies consistent so that we have at least 2 copies of the 4 gloves instead of having only 1 copy of all of the gloves. I prefer to have it more consistent. So we are targeting only metal types, fire types, dark type, and grass type. So we are not targeting any other types. If they are playing those types, we actually get to add 30 damage. If we have this tool card that we are not able to discard from our hand, then we actually get to add that extra 30 damage to our Garbodor and pass the turn. That means after we pass the turn, not only are we adding 30 damage on that turn, on the next turn we get to add 30 damage for the next Garbodor if they knock out our active Garbodor with the gloves on. So that glove actually does a lot, at the right time. If it shows up at the right time, then you can do a lot. But sometimes you may need to discard it instead of attaching to your Garbodor. It's kind of the same thing as discarding, but when you can't discard, what I'm trying to say is when you are not able to discard your hand anymore, and if it shows up on your hand, then you can attach it for that extra 30 damage. So that's when those gloves actually do something. So Trash Cyclone doesn't do a lot of damage. You need to discard up to 8 to be able to knock out a V card. With 1 hit, you need to discard up to 11 or even 12 to knock out a V Max with 1 hit. So this card is actually very much weaker than the new Chilling Reign cards like Malamar, the stage 1 price basic cards, 1 price stage 1 cards like Malamar or Sandaconda, which actually requires only 1 energy to hit a lot of damage. Malamar is 40x damage. Trash Cyclone is only 30x damage. That means you need to discard up to 8 to be able to knock out a V card with 1 hit. That is crazy. So it is very weak in my opinion. That is why to make it work, you actually need that Galarian Articuno or that Meowth Duskull for you to discard enough within a single turn to knock out a V or VMAX with 1 hit or even a GX with 1 hit. But our main strategy for this deck is to time our attacks well. If we time it well, we can actually collect enough tool cards in our discard pile to knock out a V or VMAX with 1 hit without attacking first. We can actually pass the turn not attacking just to collect those extra tool cards in our discard pile. So if you pass the turn not attacking, you can actually save yourself with your Giant Bomb card or your Lucky Egg card. So these 2 cards allow force your opponent to decide which Pokemon to knock out and maybe use a boss order to prevent the tool card effect, because those 2 cards allow you to draw extra card into your hand or to place 10 damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon if they attack you, if they damage your Garbodor or any active Pokemon that has your Giant Bomb attached to you. You can even attach your Giant Bomb to your Dedenne if it's stuck in the active spot or something like that. You can attach it to your Dedenne, Crobat, whatever, and if they knock it out with 180 or more damage, then you get to put 10 damage counter on the attacking Pokemon. So this Giant Bomb does a lot. That is why we have 2 copies of it. I would prefer to have 4 copies of it, but just to make this deck different, I actually add more gloves than necessary for this deck to be a little more different than the regular Garbodor deck. The regular Garbodor deck works really well with a lot of Giant Bombs in it because this card is super strong. Not only do you discard it at the end of your turn, you actually get to have that extra effect of putting 10 damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon if they damage your Garbodor with 180 or more damage with their attacks. So this is very powerful. It's a very strong card. But it is no longer in the standard format though. Important thing to note that this card is no longer allowed in the standard format on the 10th of September on the next rotation. So we also have a lot of our Sun and Moon cards in this deck. So important to note that this deck is no longer valid on the next rotation. We have 2 Didanes, 1 Mew, 3 Hapus, 2 what do you call that? 2 Giant Bombs and 2 Metal Core Barriers, and we also have our 3 copies of Triple Acceleration Energy, which is the main card that we need to make any Twin Energy card work. So that's why that's probably why you see all of those new stage 1 Pokemon cards that no longer has the that 2 energy attack cost, because 2 energy attack cost actually does require a lot. You need not only twin energy, you need other ways of attaching your energy, because 4 copies of twin energy is not enough. You need your triple XL to make it work. So for any twin energy attack cost card, if you don't have triple acceleration energy, you're gonna have to figure out a way of attaching that extra energy either with a Zacian energy switch or a Moltres energy switch or something like that to make that card work. And those cards actually add to the bulk of your deck. It restricts the deck even more. It makes it even more confined just because you need to add those cards. You can't actually add other cards that you need anymore. So that's how restricted the next rotation is. So this is an important thing to note. The next rotation is going to be very, very tough. So the unique selling point for this deck is our gloves. We have our Crushing, Fireproof, Justified, and Gardening gloves. So these gloves allow us to hit for extra 30 damage to any metal, fire, dark, and grass types. So these gloves actually help when you don't discard them. So if you discard them, you don't actually get to add extra 30. Obviously it does add 30 for your Trash Cyclone effect if it's in your discard pile, but if you are not able to discard any more from your hand, and if you are lucky enough to have those that exact glove that you need against that fire type or grass type or metal or dark type that you're facing as your opponent's active Pokemon, then you actually get to add an additional 30 damage with your gloves by attaching from your hand to your active Garbodor. So if you can't discard that glove, use it for that extra 30 damage. So this is the strong point of this deck. If we have that glove show up at the right time, we can do more than the regular Garbodor deck. But as we said earlier, we have no Duskulls, no Galarian Meowth, no Galarian Articunos in this deck. So we actually have to time our attacks well, and we have to work our way around that. We do have a good few supporter cards in this deck. If we use Research Dedenne at the right time, if we recycle our Dedenne, we can actually discard a lot more than we expect within a single turn. And that actually allows us to knock out very easily a V or VMAX card with our Trash Cyclone attack. We can do a lot with that attack if we save our discard piles, if we save the amount of tool cards in our discard piles before we hit for the knockout damage. So it is important to time your attacks well. I cannot stress that enough. That is the main thing you have to think about when you're using this deck, because we don't have Duskulls to spare. We don't have those cards to allow us to discard energy cards from our hand every turn. We can only discard energy cards with our we can only discard tool cards from our hand with our Dedenne GX, with our Research. We can even discard from our deck with our Hapu, but that is all we have, and those cards, we have limited amount of those cards. So we have to think of using them wisely and using them at the right time. Otherwise, if we run out of them, then that's it. Our game ends right there. We lose the game if we don't use them well. If we reach that optimum point for a regular Garbodor deck, the optimum point is when you have nothing left in your deck. You have no cards in your deck except tool cards, because you actually get to shuffle back after using this attack. So it's actually impossible for your opponent to mill a Garbodor deck just because you have this Trash Cyclone attack, which allows you to shuffle back all of your tool cards from your discard pile back into your deck. That means you actually get to replenish your deck over and over and over. And that optimum point that I'm talking about is when you have no cards left in your deck except your Pokemon tools. So when you reach that point, a regular Garbodor deck can do a lot once they reach that point, because they can actually Cinccino to draw back those tool cards and then discard the tool cards from their hand with their Duskull, Galarian Articuno, or Meowth. So that's the main strategy for a regular Garbodor deck. But just because we want to make this card a bit more fun, we add our gloves, we add our Bruno as well, just to make it a little bit more versatile, and we add our Lucky Egg. So we are trying to make it a little bit different and a little bit more fun. So that's all for the deck review. Let's go ahead for gameplay. Gameplay will be silent because that way everybody gets to focus and I get to be more alert as well. So hope you guys enjoy the game. We'll see you in the next video and have a nice day. Bye guys!